Today I want to talk about self-acceptance and how to do it, and how to do it in a way that's not pretentious or ego-centered or, that turns you into a jerk, really. Because there's the self-entitlement and that underbelly of self-acceptance that is often misunderstood. So the first most important thing of achieving self-acceptance is really realizing what is the model, the ideal self that you're trying to live into. So like it or not, every one of us has an ideal self that we're trying to live into. Who are you trying to be? Like why are you trying to be this way? I'm not sure exactly when. I figured out over years and years of, I think it probably began with a Michael Meade and his work, where he sort of introduced me to the idea of how a gnarled, just completely worked piece of wood, driftwood, is flawed, but it's incredibly beautiful in its flaw. And I realized at that point in my life, over that and a number of other things, that it was more important to figure out who you already are. And in my case, I was an incredibly social person. I love talking to people. I'm making these videos. I'm kind of out there on my sleeve, and that's where I have the most vitality and energy. And in combination with my 30-day solo, I realized that I no longer had to try to conquer this quote-unquote weakness of mine, that I needed to embrace who I was, and who I am is someone who's incredibly social. So, and that happens however it happens when you're growing up. So the point of self-acceptance is to figure out what is the ideal, or who are you trying to become, and why are you trying to become that? For me, it was really the wealth and the women. I wanted wealth and women. Now, I'm also a compassionate, nice guy who believes in fairness and taking care of nature, so I didn't want to do that in a way that was harmful. But I still saw this strong silent type as really the individual strong silent type who didn't need any support. I still saw that as an ideal that I needed. And to this day, I still am very drawn to people who are that way. But now I appreciate that it's not my innate character. It's just a little piece over here. It's a little piece over here that comes up. And I have those moments of it, but I'm no longer trying to put myself into that identity anymore. I'm just accepting it as it evolves. Like it ebbs and flows. Some days I'm more strong silent type. Some days I'm way more social. But I'm predominantly way more social. So at that point in my life, that's when my life started to open up. You shouldn't be really focusing on all your weaknesses and trying to fix them. That's a very mediocre life. All the greats throughout history really delved into who they were and what they were great at, and exploited that to the maximum degree inside of their values. So for me, I value nature, I value fairness, I value kindness, I value compassion, I value empathy, and I value health, and I value strength. So all those things I'm trying to put in to this strength that I have of being very social and being very vocal. So the point is that you have to ask that question: who am I trying to be? And more importantly, well, equally importantly, why am I trying to be that person? Because there's something you want. I wanted the women, and I wanted the wealth, and I wanted the health. I wanted those three things: women, wealth, and health. I wanted those things. I wanted to feel good, and I wanted those attractions. And so, but I have a beautiful partner. I have now a beautiful child. None of those things would have happened had I not learned to accept myself. An interesting thing that happens when you start crossing the bridge from trying to become something that you're not to figuring out who you are and becoming more of it, you start to become more attractive. Self-acceptance and personal power are the two most attractive things out there. To simplify it, again, ask that question: who are you trying to be? And then you got to begin the process of what do I value, and what are my strengths? And what really lights me up? So being alone, doing stuff in front of a computer doesn't light me up. This is about as close to alone as I get. I'm alone in my sauna, and I'm making a video that I'm putting out into the world. So I'm alone, but I'm not. I'm projecting what I'm doing into the world so it feels inspiring and enlightening to me. If I were to be trying to make this video for myself, it'd be dead. It'd be flat. It wouldn't work for me. It's not who my fundamental character is. Another thing I think is very important is that, you know, we inherit these ideas of what it's okay to want. Total fucking horseshit when it comes to personal development. As long as they're aligned with your values, you know, like your core values. You know, I stated mine earlier, like nature, fairness, compassion, nature, fairness, compassion. Those are the biggies. I also value strength and health. But those 5 things, it doesn't matter what I want as long as they're consistent with those 5 things. Point is it doesn't matter what the outside world says you should want. It matters what you say inside you should want. My only caveat for that is that if you think that you're going to harm others or you're not actually making the world a better place, then you need to question that. I think that's pretty much it, you know. It's really pretty simple. Not easy, but simple. Figure out who you're trying to be. If you're not experiencing self-acceptance and developing your own strengths, and then surrounding yourself with people that are filling in the gaps that you have. You know, I'm not a paperwork person. I'm not an accountant. So I fill in the gaps with people around me that have those kind of skills. If you're not exercising your strengths and your values and making them better, and then moving your weaknesses sort of out to the side, sure, you got to learn how to balance your checkbook if that's causing you pain. You got to do those little things. But for the most part, most of your energy should be focused on accentuating your strengths. And then the other part of that, asking who you're trying to become, sort of discovering those cultural and family influences that are pushing you into this idea. At first, it's going to be kind of hard. You're not going to be able to see it if you haven't already done this work. It's going to be kind of blind to you. You're just going to think like, oh, this is who I need to be. But the truth is that 90% of the time, no, 100% of the time, what you inherited as an ideal was a completely random construct that came from your family's unconscious and your cultural unconscious, and then historical and educational things that you may have been exposed to. So for most of us, we didn't have parents that were able to sort of craft that in the best way and give us the best influences. They just sort of landed there, and now we're sort of swimming out of it. So discover what all those influences are, and then start to peel them away. We have these all over the world. We have these in cultural stuff. We have these in the way we relate to career, the way we relate to neighbors, the way we relate to friends, all of that stuff. So you got to take all of those narratives that are already there, dissect them, get rid of the ones you don't want, and then add your values to them. You know, compassion, integrity, value for nature, empathy, whatever yours are. And that's the process. I highly recommend writing it down. You know, it may take you writing it down 10 times, but eventually you'll get to a place where you develop enough awareness and you'll realize. One thing besides writing it down is expose yourself to new information. I had to peel myself out of a mental paradigm of lack. So I used to think in very much of lack terms around relationships. I would think that there was, you know, the one, or something like that, and that there was, you know, just there was a needle in a haystack, and I was never going to find her. And then, so for about 2 years prior to my relationship, I kept transforming that narrative and exposing myself to, you know, how many women there were on the planet, how many available women there were on the planet, all these different types of women that might be interested in somebody like me who's more social and more outgoing and kind of, you know, a little rough around the edges, not like sort of refined and straight. And that's, you know, maybe 1 billion. I don't know. It's a lot, though. And so I had to peel those narrative beliefs out. And those narrative beliefs came from the social structure, the family structure, and then the information structure that I had put myself into. So a great way to start peeling those out is to start digesting information, whether it be from YouTube videos, whether it be from books, whether it be from alternative news sites. I'm not talking about alternative news in the conservative sense, but ones that are more aligned with something that makes sense for you in terms of what you want. It needs to make sense for you. One of the problems that people face in the spiritual world is they think like, oh, I can just fake it till I make it when it comes to my beliefs. Beliefs don't work that way. You've got to latch on to little beliefs that start chinking away the big belief. You need to just sort of accept the process of peeling away layers of stuff that was just just built on top of you when you were this little kid, and now you got to peel away each one. until you get down to who you really are. One more idea about this getting to who you are. The who you are thing, again, is one of those paradox wisdoms. You are never solid. You know, we are, for lack of a better term, quantum particles. Our fundamental nature is changing. But the apparent and physical level reality that we have to deal with is the hardwiring of our brain, the hardwire of our emotional body, and how that interplays with our ability to change the plasticity of the brain and to change the fundamental nature of how we're wired into the matrix. So, at the same time I'm saying, discover who you are and become more of that. Also know that that's fluid. That can change, and you can change that. The problem is when you try to change it into something that was culturally or familially sort of imposed on top of you. That doesn't work. You have to sort of organically find it from the inside and then see what you're becoming, and then let that become more of who you are. Please subscribe if you like the content and want more, and go to the website. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.